Danke vielmals für die richtig warme, große Einladung. Diese, wie sagt man das in Deutsch? Ja? Einführung, ja, das ist richtig, sorry. Verzeihung. I would like to continue in English, because I feel more comfortable to talk about our chemistries, etc., in the English language. And I discussed with several students, and they said, oh, we have no problem with English, So for the young people, I think it's fine. So I adapted my Nobel lecture a little bit because there are so many young people here, and I want to also give a message to them. But you see here the Kunst, klein, Bauen, the art of building small. I often get the question, why are you doing this? Why do we need molecular machines? Why do we need molecular motors? What are you doing there in the university, Playing? So, this was the kind of question that the Wright brothers got more than 100 years ago. Why does mankind need an airplane? Why does mankind need to fly? If we want to fly, God would have given us wings. Nobody would have predicted that in Europe we will build 100 years later the Airbus that can carry 400 people, 1,000 kilometers an hour, 10,000 miles across the ocean. We admire the flying pigeon, as I do. We love Mother Nature. It's absolutely amazing. But try to carry 400 people, 1,000 kilometers an hour across the ocean. This is one of the feasts, of many scientists coming together. Engineers building an aircraft that can do this. Yes? Nobody would have predicted that we would do that. But we should also be very modest, because 100 years after the Wright brothers, my friends in biology tell me, we cannot build a pigeon. We cannot build a single cell of the pigeon. We cannot build even one of the machineries of the pigeon today. So, I suppose everybody has a smartphone here. Anybody that has no smartphone? Oh wow, you are my hero. So, which fundamental scientific questions were asked and new insights and discoveries were made to build a smartphone? Let's not forget, it was in the late 40s and early 50s of the past century that the physics and chemists built the liquid crystal display materials for the displays, and the first transistors. And the first computer was built by IBM in the early 50s, which could fill this whole room and could do way less than your smartphone. Physics, transistors, chemistry, liquid crystals, batteries, engineers, devices, computer science, many contributed to this. And it took 50 years, because smartphones are with us only 17 years. Nobody would have predicted in the early 50s, when these fundamental discoveries were made, that we would have smartphones. The smartphone did not exist, of course. And we agree it changed our world, the way we communicate with each other. John Goodenow got the Nobel Prize together with his Japanese colleagues in 2019 for the lithium-ion battery that he developed in the 80s. Otherwise, we would not have electric cars, and we would not have smartphones today. Only 14 years ago. So, the joy of discovery is the path in the world of science to the future, the world of knowledge and science. And there are many challenges, dreams and opportunities. Dreams for our young people, opportunities for our society and our industries. It's an adventure in the unknown. And of course, there is often serendipity, because it's all about asking questions. Which questions are we going to ask to Mother Nature? Which questions we are going to go beyond our current frontiers of science? And of course, we get lost quite a lot in this beautiful garden, which is the garden of knowledge and science. And then, often we hit upon the most beautiful questions that we have not even thought about. And they often come with the most fantastic discoveries. I work as a chemist, and I enjoy the beauty of the molecular world. That's my passion. But let me start a little bit telling where I'm from. I grew up in a small village on the German border. My grandparents came all from Emsland and crossed the border at those days. And indeed, I grew up on a farm. This is me when I just went to high school. These are my brothers and sisters, a family indeed of 10. And these are my parents. Sorry, this is where I grew up, by the way. This is our farm, and this was the German border. And behind there, in the Großbutanger Moor, there were all these moors, etc. Part of my perspective was this: marshes and moors. Yeah? And I must say, as a kid, I was already fascinated. There were books at home in the farm, and I was fascinated by reading about von Humboldt and discoverers, you know. And I think this is probably me being excited about another picture of a discovery. This is where it all started. And when you grow up on a farm, I think it is, these are my parents, by the way, it's absolutely fascinating to ask your father, why is this color so different from this color in the field? Why does from this tiny seed grow this beautiful sunflower of 3-4 meters, or this wheat? And of course they had no answers to everything, but they stimulated us a lot. And when you grow up on a farm with cows, with pigs, with all kinds of animals, etc., and you can discover a lot and ask a lot of questions. It's often about asking questions and admire Mother Nature. And of course, at those days, when I was a kid, I already crossed borders. I showed you the border, to Germany. And illegally, at that time, it was still illegal. It was before the EU, before we are going to close borders again. We crossed borders, and we went over there. And that was an adventure when we were small kids, I can tell you there, you know. But it was absolutely wonderful. And this is where it all started. And then I went to the university. And this is my high school teacher. Sorry, I went first to high school, of course, gymnasium. This is my high school teacher. And I enjoyed very much. For me, a new world opened. The world of physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. And my chemistry teacher, our chemistry teacher and physics teacher, was absolutely marvelous. I think he encouraged us so strongly to do experiments and so, and to adventure, to be creative. And I'm sure everybody here can remember one teacher that make the difference in his or her life. We should not underestimate that. Then I went to the university. Professor Winberg, it was mentioned already. This is the University of Groningen. And he was trained in America. And typically, as an American, he gave me an impossible problem. Yeah? He told me, you can do it. You are talented. We will make the Americans jealous. After 3 weeks, I had made my first molecule. I came to him, and I wrote the molecule on the blackboard. And he said to me, Ben, nobody ever made this molecule, not even in America. It was an absolutely useless molecule. But I was so proud. It was my molecule. Nobody in the world had made it. And from that moment on, I got really addicted to chemistry in particular, but also, of course, physics, etc., but the molecular world. But let me first acknowledge the teachers, because they set the stage to my route, to Stockholm and my career. And teachers open windows and shape the future with the young talents. And we should not forget that they are crucial for our future, for all the young talents here in the audience. So then after my PhD in chemistry, I went to work to Shell. This is the big Shell research laboratories in Amsterdam at those days. And then I moved to Shell Biosciences in England. So I got a very multidisciplinary type of experience in catalysis, in materials, but then also in the bio field. And then I decided after 6.5 years to go back to the university. But I can tell you, going out of my comfort zone and to experience a big multinational like Shell or like BASF or Bayer or whatever is a great experience when you go out of the university. And I learned a lot there. And during my whole career, I have been working together also on projects with industries. So this was me, apparently. My students came recently and they found this on Twitter, March 2020. And this was me when I went back as a young docent to the university. And it said, we chemists are lucky you choose academia instead of becoming a rock star. Now, this was the time of the long hair. I can do something with molecules, I claim, but nothing with music. My sisters, I have 6 sisters, and they always forbid me to do anything with singing or music or whatever. I'm awful. But apparently at those days, this was back in the 80s, late 80s, I said the beauty of chemistry is that I can create my own molecular world. It's like creating your own music or your own book or whatever. It's fantastic. So, yes, I like the beauty of molecules, and I work in the laboratory, and this is what I've done my whole career. I developed this passion for molecules by chemical synthesis. You can create new molecules, new functions, new materials, etc. And this is because molecules are beautiful, but often, of course, because they have specific functions. They are useful. And this is what I've been doing, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. But first, to bring us all on the same track, what do I mean? Building molecules, chemical synthesis, for those people who are completely out of this field, it's almost like Lego. We take small building blocks and build complex molecules step by step. For instance, this molecule Taxol, yeah, which was made and is an anti-cancer drug, and it's a life-saving drug. It saves many people, of course. This is a really complex molecule. So, this is what we do in the laboratory, building molecules and materials together with our students, with our young researchers, to train them, to go to industry, to go into an academic career. We have a universal language. You all remember this from high school. The language of the molecules. This is sugar. When I go to China or South Africa or whatever in the world, I don't speak Chinese. But when I go to high schools as well, and when I talk with students, whatever, everybody that has a little bit of chemistry understands that this is a molecule and this is a sugar. So a universal language. We have no borders. There's a lot of talk about borders these days. We go beyond frontiers because that is the basis of science. Going to learn new things to discover. International cooperation and passion for discovery. By the way, this is the periodic table. This is amazing, eh? The periodic table. This holds everything that you see around you, including everything in your body. All the elements that make up the universe. So, talking about borders, I introduced this message. I wanted to give this quote of one of my heroes. Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch which illuminates the world. And that was Louis Pasteur, and who mentioned that. And we should not forget that, and also our politicians should not forget this. Sorry, I don't want to make political statements. Chemistry, from atoms to molecules to materials, is thanks to this man, Mendeleev, which belongs in the same category as these gentlemen here, the periodic table of the elements. And as I mentioned already, you know, this is what makes up everything. And this is what we like as chemists, material scientists, etc. So very briefly, I don't know if you realize, this is the formula of your body. Hydrogen 375 million, oxygen 132 million, etc., etc. One lonely cobalt. Dr. Gullitz, can you stand up for a second and look at the audience? Look, you might wonder, why is there so much hydrogen and oxygen in your body? This man is 60% water. And he looks pretty okay, eh? That is because there are quite a few other molecules that make it all possible. This is life. And now the question, especially to the young people. Are there more or less distinct elements in your body or in your smartphone? A body is quite a complex, eh? My body is pretty complex, I would say, eh? We understand only a little bit of it. So now what about your smartphone? Okay, here it is. There are more distinct elements in the smartphone than in your body. So if you just calculate the number, yeah, count the number of atoms, a smartphone is more complex than a body. I would still argue that a body is more complex than a smartphone, but this is reality. So we use all these elements. So, this is what chemistry is doing, making small molecules like ethylene, 2 carbons, 4 hydrogens, 160 million tons a year. The basis for one of the most important plastics, polyethylene, and we can discuss about the plastic problems later. Very complex molecules, vitamin B12, lots of atoms, only 35 tons a year, because you need only microgram quantities to stay healthy. Essential molecules. Very simple, very complex. This molecule has been made by Woodward and Hashimoto many, many years ago, and it was called the Mount Everest of synthetic chemistries. So this is typically what chemists do. Making drugs, cables, the components for your car, smartphone, dyes, clothes, etc. Not in isolation, but together with our colleagues in physics, engineering, material science, etc., etc. But the basic components are usually from the chemical industries and from the chemists. But this is where we are very good in. And I would say, sometimes I get this argument, oh, you are a chemist. Be proud to be a chemist, I would say, because otherwise we wouldn't have a modern society. And of course we face some problems with respect to sustainability and green nature of the future, etc. But this is what we are good at. But what we are not good at is something that moves. And now look again at your body. This is a rotary motor in your body. These are no motors that make things transport in your cells. This is a fantastic robot that makes the proteins in your body. This is the bacteria flagella motor. The bacteria swims in your guts, going forward and backward with this tiny motor. This is the optical switching in the eye, where we started our journey at those days. And we thought, can we make things moving? Because we move, a car moves, but all the materials that I see here don't move by themselves. But in a living organism, things move. So that was the big challenge. And this has to do with this field of molecular nanotechnology. And it was Richard Feynman who said already in '59 that there's plenty of room at the bottom. And what he meant is he was a very famous physics person, and he said there's plenty of room at the bottom. That is start like Mother Nature, with atoms and molecules, and build up instead of going top down, smaller and smaller, like in the chips industry, but build it up, bottom up. And this is typically what it's doing. And so top down or going bottom up. And this is typically what I will talk about. And these are my colleagues that I had the honor to go to Stockholm. Sir Fraser Stoddart and Jean-Pierre Sauvage, who made also molecular machines. You see one of their designs here, but it's completely different designs to what I will talk about. So just to be everybody on track, what is nano? 1 nanometer is a billionth of a meter. That's typically the size of a big molecule. The cross-section, look, let me take one hair here. You can see my hair there? You cannot see it in the back. One hair. The cross-section of a human hair is 80,000 nanometers. That is huge, compared to what we are talking about. And this size matter, yes, sure. If this summer you have been in a beach at the Mediterranean on these pebbles, you will be careful to drop down. But when you go to the Waddeninsel, closely where I live, you have these beautiful sandy beaches. They are fantastic. But you also know, this is the same material, but they feel completely different. I tell you, also these small particles, you know when you are on the Waddeninsel and there's wind, and you come home, you still have the dust everywhere when you take a shower. And when you have such a pebble in your bathsuit, you take it out because it hurts, I can tell you. So, I get always this question, how can we see then what is happening at this scale? And now, thanks to IBM and many other developments in the physics community, we have now this new nanoscopes. These are not microscopes, because microscopes, you cannot do anything with it. I think everybody here has looked through a microscope sometime, but you don't, they are way too big. But these nanoscopes is like a needle that ends at the tip at one atom. And then you can feel atoms and molecules. And you can even write, like for instance carbon monoxide on the copper surface. And on this cross-section of my hair, I don't want to take another one because, I don't want to lose all my hair. But on the cross-section of the hair, you can write 250 million letters when you write at the atomic scale, at the nanoscale. This is the promise of nanotechnology. Very small. We work on molecular nanotechnology, and I will take you a little bit along this journey of our discovery. We started with switches. 0, 1. You all know what a switch is, and you switch on the light, you switch on your smartphone, you switch on your car. 0, 1, 0, 1. Crucial is that the switch should go back and forth. And we took our inspiration from the human eye. And the fact that I can see this lady here, yeah, and she can see me, yeah, you know, that is because we have these switches in our eye, yeah. The molecules go from this band structure to this linear structure. Millions of these molecules, when I look in this, yeah, they switch, and then a signal goes to the brain, and we can do information processes and storing, etc. But what is crucial, of course, that they should go back, because if they switch only one way, look, when I look in this bright light here, several of you I don't see for a moment, because there are too many switches in this state. So they should go back. Otherwise, you cannot do information storage. 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, back and forth. So this is where we started. And we built artificial switches. You might say, why not taking the switch from your eye? Because Mother Nature invented it. Think about this bird and the airplane. We had to build robust switches, and don't worry so much about the molecules, but we were switching back and forth with these molecules. We could do that very robust, but we had a serious problem when we did this several years ago. And that is how to retrieve the information, how to get the information out. Because when we were switching, we were losing information because they are sensitive to light. So we made them gyral. I don't know if you know what gyral means, left and right, handedness. That is a fundamental problem of molecules. I will come back to that in a second. So we made one a minus and one a positive plus helix, right and left. So we switched between right and left, and that allowed us to build a very robust switch where we could store information. So we make, this is for instance, electrodes with gold, and there are monolayers, one layer of molecules that you can switch, yeah, very effectively. And so we built information storage devices. This is now several years ago. And I'm sure the elder generation here will remember what a compact disc is. Kids don't know what a compact disc is anymore. When I was a student, this was the latest technology. Yeah? Now it's, of course, smartphones. We built, you can write zeros and ones in a piece of plastic. And this is the storage capacity of one compact disc. You can store this megabytes, which means you can store 240 years of music. You can play with one CD 240 years of music. So your grandchildren and your grandparents, 6 generations, can continuously play music. Yeah? This is a bit the promise of nanotechnology. Yeah? There's still an issue here with addressing each 0 and each 1, yeah? With light. But we can discuss this later. But then, as was mentioned already, in the last 10, 15 years, we moved to the biomedical field, because we thought if we can make switchable materials and information storage, why not making smart drugs? And tomorrow we will hear, I think, a beautiful lecture about optogenetics and using light in the field of neural processes and so. So this whole optogenetic is a really amazing field that you find everywhere now. This has been developed so quickly. But I'm not a geneticist, and I thought, let's make switchable drugs. Because with this optogenetics, you have to modify genes and to express proteins in the brain, for instance. But we thought, what if you have a small molecule, like a simple drug, a pharmaceutical, and you switch it with light? Can you switch on and off? This field now is called, it has exploded in the last few years, it's called photopharmacology. So the whole idea is that you have high precision in therapeutic action. So we work a lot together with the biologists, but in particularly with the medical schools. We have a big program. The idea is, with a light, or with a laser, or whatever, to activate a drug precisely there where it's needed. So imagine you have an infection, or you have a tiny tumor that a surgeon cannot remove. Yeah? Precisely address it, write the information to your laser, and the laser beam will activate the drug precisely on the spot. So, what we do is, we focus on 2 important problems. Yeah? We have been facing the COVID crisis, but realized that the World Health Organization said there might be another crisis coming. Bacterial resistance, one of humanity's ticking time bombs. And of course, this is all to do with the resistance that we build up due to all the antibiotic use. Cancer treatment, chemotherapy. You all know the problems, you know, with chemotherapy, that you get all these side effects, etc. Eh? So if you can do high precision therapy, that's my dream, that you don't build up resistance because you activate exactly on the spot and it deactivates, or you can do precision chemotherapy. We might go to the clinic. And actually the first experiments are now done in the clinic. We are not the only group working on this, of course. People like, for instance, Dick Trauner, and so some of you might know. He is very active in this field, and several others as well. So what we did is, some of our early work, for instance, we took Cipro, which is a drug that you get preserved as an antibiotic in the clinic. And we built in a light switch. Yeah, this is a so-called azobenzene. And we switch from this elongated form to this band structure, just like in your eye. And this is very robust. And we were, sometimes, I must admit, in science, you have to have a little bit of luck. You can have beautiful theories and ideas, but when you do experiments, it might be different. But I think here we had luck. This one is inactive, and this one is active. So we can activate with light, yeah, the antibiotic. And then it deactivates automatically. And we can precisely tune how long it takes that it goes back. So you see here a Petri dish. This is typically what we do with cells in laboratories around the world, growing cells. Here you see the cells grow normal. Here the cells don't grow. Because here we irradiate and here we don't irradiate. Very brief irradiation, switch the antibiotic on, and then the bacteria don't grow. This is a yin-yang figure that my students made of cells. And yes, no resistance build up, at least that's what we try to do. Control biofilm formation, which is a real big problem in the hospitals, with the implants, etc. And so we have done things now in animals, in the tissue, etc. And we are very excited about this, this field. The other one is cancer treatment, and just one example. This is a cell, yeah? And cancer cells, to get things specifically in cancer cells, we have a big program on that to activate towards transport and to activate a chemotherapeutic agent, just with high precision. And I show you an example of what we really recently discovered. This was published not long ago, that we took a protein from a spider. And these proteins are toxic because they drill holes in cells. Yeah? And we put a light switch on this protein. Here we need a genetic modification of the protein to get the switch on the precise, the good spot. We modified it, and then it doesn't do anything. And then we hit it with light, it switches, as you can see, the shape changes, and it drills a hole in a cancer cell. So the proteins come together. After we irradiate briefly, they come together and drill a hole in the cancer cell. The cancer cell becomes leaking, and it dies. And we use a similar tricks now also to get drugs into cancer cells, etc. So here we take advantage of biology, modify it with synthetic chemistry, and to make it into a smart drug that we can use towards real cell cultures and hopefully in the future. It's a long journey to get into the clinic, we know that, but I think it is a path to the future. Now, this was switches. And I want to talk a bit about motors, because a switch is not a motor. A switch goes back and forth, and a motor, you know that from your car, is different. So, molecular motors, I told you already, there are plenty of motors in your body. Yeah? And we all, I mean, motion is key to life. We know that, from bacteria all the way to your own body. And when you ask a tiny kid, is it dead or alive, when you go to the beach and he sees this or he sees that, even a 3-year-old knows that this is alive because it moves. What are these motors doing? They push you out of equilibrium. This is what motors do in your body. And I see sometimes in glossy magazines, lifestyle magazines, or on television, I hear, be in equilibrium. Ladies and gentlemen, no. Because if you are in equilibrium, you are dead. be in harmony or in balance, that's fine. But don't ever be in equilibrium, because that is, then a biological system is dead. So, this is the most fantastic motor that I know. I'm sure you are all proud, the people that have cars, they are all proud of the motors in your car. But this is by far the most beautiful motor. This is the ATPase rotary motor. There are millions of these, billions of these motors actually in your body. And you see they spin in a particular direction. And they produce the ATP, the fuel in your body. And did you ever realize how much they produce? These tiny motors? They are a few nanometers in size, They produce the fuel, ATP. They produce half your body weight almost every 24 hours. Can you imagine half your body weight every 24 hours by these tiny motors? I like a good German bratwurst or a schnitzel, but I don't eat half my body weight every day. These compounds are recycled. Most of it is completely recycled. Half your body weight every day. What is one of the most urgent problems we are facing? That is recycling our materials, our plastics, our precious metals, our electronic components. Come on, guys, we are not smart enough. Your body recycles half your body weight every day. We have to learn how to do this. Learn from Mother Nature and translate into synthetic processes and materials. So, but this was the inspiration for us. But now I come to the fundamental question that we were facing. What is the fundamental question to make a rotary motor that spins like the ATPase? And the fundamental question was how to control rotary motion in the nano world and how to control left and right. If there's no fuel in your car, no petrol, or the battery is empty in your electric car, you cannot move. There should be energy, a supply. Second, there should be directionality, because there's equal probability, going left or right, forward or backward, you stand still and you wouldn't get anywhere either. So how did we solve that problem? The energy comes from the light. So we have a light-powered system. I will talk about light-driven system today. And how to control left and right? We look again at Mother Nature. The most beautiful example is the DNA, the right-handed helix of DNA. It was called by nature the Mona Lisa of modern science. And the essential molecules in your body, and this is a very fundamental problem still, because we don't understand yet why, the amino acids, the proteins, the sugars, the DNA, they all have one mirror image form, left or right. How to distinguish between left and right? This is what kept me busy during my whole career. And I think I benefited from the fact that I grew up on a farm. And as a kid, there where I grew up close to the German border, we had these wooden shoes in the moors, because it was always wet. And we appreciate the wooden shoes. These were my wooden shoes when I was a kid. And I tell you one thing. Everybody here sometimes during his life has the experience that you struggle with left and right, stepping in the wrong shoe. But I tell you, as a kid, when you step in the wrong wooden shoe, it hurts so much you never forget what left and right is. You immediately know for the rest of your life. So, we use molecules that have one form, right-handed or left-handed. And then we irradiate with light, and based on what we had done earlier with the switches, we made this tiny motor. And you see it rotates, it spins in one direction. This is the tiniest motor in the world. The size is slightly less than 1 billionth of a meter. Actually, we found it a little bit by accident, serendipity, because we were making a new type of switch, and then suddenly my student said, it doesn't switch back. And then when we studied it, it turned that it went forward. And when you realize that, so to the young people, when you do experiments or science or whatever, look for things that go wrong, because you can learn a lot from it. And by accident, you sometimes find some really amazing discoveries. So this is our molecular motor, and it spins in a unidirectional sense under the high influence of light. So it can spin clockwise, and when we make the left-handed form, it spins counterclockwise, goes to the left. And when we make the right-handed form, it spins in a clockwise manner. It rotates. And why do we call it a motor? Because as long as we put in energy, fuel, light, it rotates, it spins, like the ATPAs. So, what can you do with that? That's the second question I always get asked, you know. That's nice, Dr. Feringa, you made such a tiny motor, 1 billion of a meter, you can move. What can you do with it? So, what we did, among others, you all know in this smartphone and the TV screen, there are these display molecules, the liquid crystal display. Eh? If you push on your screen of your smartphone, there is soft material behind. Also the screen of your flat screen at home, the TV. That is liquid crystal display materials. And they are organized like beams in a river. But when you put in a tiny amount of a right-handed or a left-handed molecule, they form a helix. And that makes a color pixel in your display. So what we did is we put a motor there, tiny amount, less than 1%. It starts to spin, yeah? And this changes, and you can see we can make every color pixel that you want within about 1 minute. So that's a practical application that we use now for all kinds of materials. But what was the most important moment during my discovery phase here? That was this. Look, my students, and I will never forget this moment, it was 5:15. My students came to me and said, Ben, you have to come to the lab. We want to show you something. This is a thin film, yeah, a thin layer of this liquid crystal material. That's also in your smartphone, in the displays. And they put a glass rod on top of it, and they put this tiny motor in there. Of course, the motor you cannot see because it's only 1 billion of a meter. But what I saw with my naked eye, when they switched on the lamp, this glass rod started to spin. We didn't have to do anything. And you see the whole surface changes. The color changes, yeah? This was the eureka moment in my career that I saw with my naked eye an object moving completely autonomous without touching. Just switching on light. The energy from the light does the job. And then over the years we built on that. And now, and again this is recent work, we use this in this kind of polymer. We make polymers that have the same kind of structures, and we can make artificial muscles, we can bend, we can grip, we can pick up things. So we are working on soft robotics. And you see here, this is interesting, what my students did. They have a piece of this material, this polymer, and it walks over the table. I don't know how many plastic bags you have in your kitchen that walk over the table when you switch on the light. We have now these materials. When you switch on the light, it starts walking, forward or backward. And you can imagine this is a stepping stone to soft robotics for the future. This is how it works. Look at this. This is the motor with these tiny tails, yeah? And it rotates, yeah? And then we put it into this network of plastic, which is of course special type, yeah? The kind of material that you find also in displays, etc. And you see a few of these motors contract the whole thing, expand the whole thing. They work together. And then you can bend. This is more or less like the muscles, yeah, in your body. Eh? There are these motor muscles, motor proteins. Yeah, they work together and they contract filaments, like I show here, and they bend, and you can grab, yeah, and you can do weightlifting. Yeah, I'm not that strong, but the people at the Olympics can. So this is how it works. Several of these motors work together, and they drive. And you go all the way from a molecule via this organized structure and the plastic to a real artificial muscle. And this is where we are now. And you can imagine we are exploring this towards all kinds of new directions. But I'm from the Netherlands, and we like windmills. I'm sure some of you, several of you have seen these traditional windmills that were built by our ancestors, the tulip fields, you know. You can please go in April and May and you find them. Nowadays we have these windmills, you know, that we see also a lot in Germany. And we thought, okay, let's make a nano windmill. because I was working together with my physics colleagues a lot, and they always challenged me and said, oh, this is really nice, Ben, but it's always in solution what you gas through, or you make plastics. We want to have things on surfaces to make devices. So we make these motors. You see here, this is the rotor. Yeah, it spins in one direction, either to the left or to the right. And we put legs there, and we assemble them on all kinds of surfaces. We started with gold. Yeah, and you can put these systems by self-assembly on gold. And so we have built a nano windmill park. So this is the traditional windmills in Holland, 20 meters or something like that, 500 years ago. These are 2 nanometers, 2 billion of a meter. So this is a monolayer, yeah, on a surface. They are very robust, and under the influence of light, they spin all in the same direction. And once again, you say, is this playground for students at the university? No, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of surfaces and materials to make responsive surfaces. So we are working on self-cleaning windows. Under the influence of light, they move. We have solar panels in the north of Holland, where I live. It rains a lot, so you don't have to clean your solar panels. But when you go to Spain, you have to get the dust off all the time, because otherwise it compromises the efficiency. If you have a coating, a layer, yeah, that moves, okay, it will clean itself. That's the future. Self-cleaning cars. Or self-repair. We are working on self-repair, and several colleagues in the world. If I have a scratch in my finger, yeah, I don't have to do anything, only keeping it clean, that it doesn't affect. It repairs itself. Here, when you have a scratch in your car, you have to go to the garage. But in the future, with these responsive materials, etc., they will repair themselves. This is where several groups are working on now. Making responsive coatings, making responsive surfaces. I'm not even talking about biomedical application, yeah, for all kinds of repair functions, etc. But this is the future. Not now, maybe 25 years from now, I'm sure the young stars here, they will all experience these kind of developments. Oh yeah, you see, we build them on surfaces, and then just before COVID, I was in Berlin, yeah, and I found this on a wall. Apparently graffiti on the wall is very famous in Berlin. We know that from the past. But I found this. Look, our motor with 3 legs. And he took our work as an inspiration. It's a mirror image, by the way. You see that? It's in a mirror image. This is probably, what a great honor for a scientist and for my students, that an artist uses your molecules in the graffiti art. I was really surprised. So, 2 more stories before I finish. People ask me all the time, you know, okay, you have a motor, can you build a car? I got a grant from our Ministry of Science and Education, and I had to tell our minister in a meeting, what are you going to do with this money? So I discussed this with the students, and the students said, look, can we go to Australia? Because, you know, you have this car race. You have seen this probably, solar-powered car race through the desert. The students have a great time, and they compete different universities with each other. I said, look, guys, this is engineering students, engineering schools. We are molecular engineers. So my students said, oh, then we will build a molecular car. So we built a 4-wheel drive. You see here are the motors. It's a 4-wheel drive. The size is 2 meters. For this one, we built one which is 1 billion times smaller. 2 nanometers. It took us 8 years, by the way, to make it. The first generation PhD students, I said to them, if you succeed, you can go to Australia as well. Yeah? And I will pay for it. But the first generation of students, you know, a PhD in Holland is 4 years. And the first year, it took us 8 years, so the first generation never made it. I'm sorry for them. But at the end, it worked out, and we built the nano car. You see, here is the nano car. And it's 2 nanometers in size. Of course, it was not about a car. It was about how you can go from rotation to translation. Yeah, like with a real car. How you can move forward or backward. And that is what we realized. But also, imagine the motors in your body, in your muscles, etc., the motors in your cells, That's not the same as a motor in a car or a train or an airplane or so. The nano world is a bit different. So this is how they move. So they walk like stepping, you know, over a surface. And we could prove. So this is the real picture with such a nanoscope. You remember the tip, eh? You can see all the parts of the car, and it moves, it walks. Of course, you have to put in energy, eh? From the light or electricity. And you might say, yeah, this is nice, this is an animation, you know. Does it really go like that? I show you this movie. This is what happens now in your body, in your cells. This is the nano world. This is the highways, the autobahn. Yeah? They are made when something has to pass. And when the car has passed by, they detach or they are formed again. And this is all fully dynamic in your body, and this is going on, and this is how things are transported in your body, in the cells. So maybe our car doesn't look so weird after all, eh? This is the kind of motion that you can expect at the nano world. Oh yeah, this is the modern electric car, yeah? This is ours. You see, this tiny powder. And I learned, when I was on my way to Germany, I learned about the problems with Volkswagen. Yeah. Look, this is 1 billion times 12 billion identical nano cars, this tiny powder. I would claim our car manufacturing plant is not so bad after all. And then there was also a Formula 1 race for nano cars. You saw in Toulouse, 2007, the first ever 36-hour live race for nano cars in Toulouse. Yeah, that is amazing. And it worked. They moved nano cars over a surface. So, I want to finish. Probably, certainly the older generation here remembers, yeah, the Fantastic Voyage. Yeah, these robots that go through the body, yeah, do a repair, deliver a drug, whatever. So will there be nanorobots? Together with our students, we took so-called carbon nanotubes, put in enzymes. So again, this is a biohybrid system. And we could propel this with sugar as a fuel. So we use sugar water because, again, we discussed with the students what should be a fuel. And there's plenty of sugar in your body. So we thought, let's design something with sugar. So these enzymes, they convert the sugar and propel it, and it drives autonomously. This is all very primitive, eh? Very primitive. Principles, fundamental discoveries. So will we have nanorobots in the future? Science or science fiction? Are these robots going through your body to do a repair, to detect a tumor cell, or to deliver a drug exactly on the spot? I don't know. I'm a scientist. I'm not so good in predicting. So I think the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And this is what scientists do. And a lot of young people here that are in the audience will guide us and help us to invent. Because we need that, eh? Facing our future. How to reduce CO2 emission by 95%. How to recycle our materials. How to fly without kerosene. How to feed 10 billion people. There are tremendous challenges for all our disciplines, and we should work together to make this possible, that we have a sustainable world in the future. Great challenges. We can learn from Mother Nature, and we have to translate it, taking advantage of all our knowledge and science. So, the lab of the future, yeah, I showed you the lab where we are working, the lab of the future, because we are reshaping our labs. We will have robotics, we will have artificial intelligence, all these tools to make this possible, to work on these complex problems in the future. So, several of the young people will work in labs like this because we will integrate all these things in our physics, chemistry, material science, and engineering labs. But I couldn't have done anything, wasn't it, for my team of young people, my stars, that made it all possible. We challenge each other, and their creativity and hard work made this possible to invent together our future, and we share a passion. You might wonder, when I was a small kid, you know, growing up on this farm, and then going through my career as a scientist, you know, Did I ever dream about a Nobel Prize? Now, I think you sometimes dream about something, yeah, when you are in a certain field. But I tell you, if you want to win a gold medal in Paris, like on the Olympics recently, they don't think about this gold medal all the time, eh? What these athletes do, these sports people, they come up at 6 o'clock in the morning, they train that hard, and when you are talented and when you have a little bit of luck, you might be able to win a gold medal. So I was doing, together with my students, we were working in the laboratory, yeah, discovering new things. And sometimes it's a long and tough journey, like for a sports person who wants to win a gold medal. But then I got a phone call in 2011 on a Wednesday evening from a colleague from the University of Minnesota. And he said, Ben, you were on American television last night. I said, come on, why should I be on? Yes, primetime American television in The Simpsons. This was the week before the announcement of the Nobel Prize, the last week of September. And so they had the predictions. The Simpsons apparently have a prediction, you know, so economics, literature, physics, chemistry. You know, chemistry, Richard Saar, William Murner, my name, and Sonaka Shira. Murner got the Nobel Prize in 2014. I had to wait another 2 years. The next morning I came in the lab, and of course the students had all seen this on the internet apparently. They came to me, Professor Ben, you will get a Nobel Prize. Predicted by the Simpsons. I said, look guys, if I'm on primetime American television as a Dutch scientist, you know, from the north of Holland, and in this program, this is the highest honor a scientist can get, you know. But then it took a few more years, and I went to Stockholm. I got this magic call, and it's like a fairy tale, and it's a dream, of course, of every scientist to go there. The Swedish king just received the medal. And then we had a nice dinner, you see. 1,200 people, a 4-hour dinner, which was absolutely amazing. Yeah. By the way, just one small story if I'm allowed. The most scaring moment was that I had to walk down here behind the queen and the king and so, with a princess with such stilettos, down these steps, you know, where there were 50 trumpets. I mean, this was a scaring moment because everything is live on television, eh? The whole country watches it, you know, so you don't want to stumble there. But it was absolutely amazing. And after the Nobel Prize, you know, of course I continued with research because the journalist asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm a scientist, I enjoy chemistry, etc. But I also started a foundation and I go to schools. This Monday I was at an elementary school and a high school. We go with our students to do experiments with the kids, yeah, to encourage their talents for discovery, curiosity, and creativity, and stimulate the teachers. And for all the young talents here in the audience, yeah, follow your dreams. This is what I did when I was a kid. Follow your dreams. And after I went to school some years ago, this was I think this was 2 years after the Nobel Prize, I gave these lectures for all the school kids and so, and they wanted to do something for me, and they said, what should we give him? He has already a gold medal, so we cannot give him a gold medal. How do they do this in America? So they looked at Fraser Stoddart, who was near Chicago and Northwestern. And in front of the chemistry department at the university, there was reserved parking for Sir Fraser Stoddart, 2016 Nobel laureate in chemistry, permits everyone, every two. This is his limousine. So he has a big car spot in front of the chemistry, you know, in front of the chemistry university buildings. And they said, we cannot do that because Ben never comes by car. He always bikes. So, you know, in our biking shed, I have now, America is a big country and Holland is small. Eh? So I have this small plaque now, where I have my private bicycle parking space reserved for Nobel laureates. Isn't it fantastic? This is how we do things in Holland. So, this is my final slide. This is my final slide, because our chairman gets a little bit nervous, sorry. Final slide of my hero, Leonardo da Vinci, who said 500 years ago, where nature finishes producing its own species, man begins with the help of nature to create an infinity of species. For all the audience, but particularly for all the young stars here that will shape our future. You will shape the future. Imagine the unimaginable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ben, for this fantastic journey through science, your private life,
my pleasure,
your professional life, and the good advice you gave to, in particular, to the young students, the junge GDNR in particular.
Danke. Danke vielmals.
Okay, so I think we have a few minutes for questions. Who wants to start? Nobody?
Yeah, there is a question over there.
Over there.
Auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch?
Oh, was macht nicht.
Okay, I can do it in English. So, I would like to start with a rather simple question, but how fast does the nano car move?
Oh.
And how strong is it? Do the nano things break easily, or is it very like
Now,
hard?
the nano car that we designed that moves over a surface, it moves around, I think, 20 nanometers an hour or so. So it's really slow. You cannot do much with it. The motors, though, but we make many different designs. Recently, we have made one which is much faster, but we have to prove it carefully, you know, because you want to make sure that it's not the temperature, that it's really doing a controlled movement. The motors by itself, the original motor, the first one we made, I showed you the picture, was rotating once an hour. That's also very slow. You cannot do much with it. But this is the beauty of chemistry and of making new molecules. You can tune the properties. You can modulate, change. And now we have motors that rotate 10 million times per second and everything in between. So we can precisely control the speed.
How do you do that?
Yeah, what you do is, of course, the two halves have to rotate with respect to each other. And you can tune the electronic properties, so the axle, where it rotates, and you can use the interaction between the upper and lower valve. So when you make it a little bit wider, it rotates faster. So there are all kinds of tricks to do that. That is typically, I can give a 2-hour lecture on the chemical aspects, how you modify these molecules, but sometimes just a smaller atom or a smaller group, and you can control it,
Okay.
It works nice.
There's a question there.
Yes.
I think better wait for the microphone. Can we have one?
Wait a second. Sie können auch in Deutsch und dann werde ich das versuchen.
Yeah, thank you very much. So what I was wondering, so in school we were told that carbon-carbon double bonds are very stiff.
Yes.
And exactly this is your axle, so to speak.
Yeah.
How does it work?
No, you are absolutely right. And I should have maybe told that more explicitly, because in school, indeed, we learn everywhere that carbon-carbon double bonds are stiff and you cannot easily rotate. In your eye, under the influence of light, it's a carbon-carbon double bond that rotates. And it does it pretty well. You can see for 80 years or 90 years, you know, sometimes you need a little bit of help. But it works beautiful. Why does that work? Because you excite one of the bonds. You have two bonds in between. With light, you excite one. Temporarily, it's a single bond, and it starts rotating. And this is going so extremely fast, because together with our physics colleagues, we do this so-called femtosecond laser spectroscopy measurements, transient measurements. And we can measure exactly how much time it takes, you know. So this is an extremely fast process, like in your eye. But yes, of course, when you don't break the bond, one of the two bonds, it cannot rotate. But to make it controllable, that's a different. That was, I think, the big discovery.
Next question.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You?
I was wondering how it is possible to have those microstructures move in the body, because you described a car that would move on a plane.
Yeah.
But would it be possible to build structures that could possibly move in liquids?
Yeah.
So maybe like use like the propulsion methods of maybe like a ship screw or something, or something similar.
Now, yeah, you have to realize that movement at the nano scale, also in your body, is different from movement on the street. I mentioned this, because we are living in the world of low Reynolds numbers. And that is completely different. You can make a swimmer, you know, but it doesn't go forward. But these, because they are propelled like this with light, they can move. And we have now recently made these motors that can go through cell membranes into the cell. So they are soluble in water. That's important for biological studies. So the solvent is water. And they move through cell membranes inside cells. And that makes it very exciting. So we can study and see them inside cells. So we are very excited about it. And we have also made them to go through cells to deliver something through the cell membrane or disturb a cell membrane or so. Like with the other ones I showed you in the beginning, you know, where we make a hole, we drill a hole. So, yeah, I don't know what will happen, you know. I'm not good in prediction, as I mentioned. But in the future, yeah, surgeons now already use robots. In the future, there might be molecular robots. Yes, molecular surgery. I mean, nowadays, we all use already DNA modification to take, you know that, you take a part out of DNA, put a new piece of DNA in it, and you modify the properties. You can do protein engineering, to change proteins. These techniques will come, including soft robotics and so for biomedical application for sure. But it might take a couple of years because we know exactly how to do that.
Next.
Have you tried building a generator of some kind?
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a really smart question. Thank you so much. We discussed this in the past year to make a turbine that you could, you know, if you have a spinning system in a magnetic field, you can make electric power. And we are looking at this now to see if we can make a nano how do you call it, turbine kind of system for getting electricity. I don't know if it works, you know. We still are struggling a bit with the design, but together with our colleagues in physics, we try to measure exactly if it works. Yes, but that's a cool idea.
Next question.
So for the drugs you developed that activate with light in the body, how would you get them to activate, for example, in the brain, because there's bone in the way?
Yeah, the brain is an issue. Yeah. Although we were also asking these questions to our friends in the medical school, and people that we talk with, like the cancer surgeons and people that work on these hip implants with the biofilms and so, they say, Ben, don't worry about the light. We can get light everywhere because they put this sonder, you know, these fibers, and they put light everywhere. I don't know. I'm not a surgeon, you know. I'm not a medical person. But so they say, work on the smart drugs, work on the imaging techniques, work on the delivery, and we will do the rest. Now, of course, to get light in your body, you want to have it penetrating in the body. So initially, we were using blue light. And you know, ultraviolet light, blue light is not so nice because it doesn't go in. And if you go to the beach, you put a sunscreen, because it's also dangerous. But we have now developed systems that use red light or even infrared light. And you know, infrared light is innocent. It goes very deep, it goes straight through your fingers. And you just heat up a little bit. So this is the latest developments in the field where red light or infrared light is used to make it going deep inside and make it innocent for biological systems. Yeah.
Good. Next one.
Firstly, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. You talked about using those moving molecular robots to automatically clean surfaces, like for solar panels. And I was wondering how stable these moving molecules are.
Now the real tough questions come. You know, when you make molecules or materials, and especially under the influence of light, they have to be very robust for application. If you have a coating on your car, you don't want to come it off when it rains or when the sun shines. Or when you have a red car, that suddenly it becomes dark gray. Huh? So yes, this is of course a fundamental problem with all materials that you design, that you have to look at long-term stability. How do they degrade under the influence of light? Light and oxygen together, can do damage. All these things we are testing, yes, and to see how to make robust. But you can build in these properties, make them very robust. But I have to admit, we have also cases where after 2 hours they degrade. So they are not useful for that purpose. But we have also systems that are stable for many long periods, for months, no problem.
Comments, yeah?
But this is of course, when you talk with people from industry, they always say, okay, it's nice, but if you make something to make a product that can be used outside in bright sunlight, and not today, but on the day when there is bright sunlight, it has to be very robust.
I'm wondering about your 4-step machine, molecular machine, because the light is a quantum energy, and that quant energy don't come into all 4 feet at the same time. That has to say 1 feet is moving, the others not. 3 are moving, the other not. How does it go parallel? How does it work?
Oh, in the motor, you mean? No.
Each step is separately initiated.
You initiate, if you have different motors, you can initiate at different times, of course. You have a collection, you have a collective behavior. But in principle, what is crucial here is, the absorption of light happens, and the kinetics, the speed, it's extremely fast. That's the point with photochemistry, with light, also in your eye. It's extremely fast. The key parameter is how much light do you get in? How much of the energy is used for the rotary process? And initially, and now I'm very excited. I tell you why. For the physics people, I'm in an excited state these days. Why? Because we always had these switches and motors that used 10-20% of the light at most. That is what we call quantum yield. How much goes in and is used for the process. Now we just published a paper where we have more than 80% of the light goes into the rotary process. So we have extremely efficient processes now. It's even more efficient than the process of diffusion of your eye.
My question had been only 1 feet is moving and the others not.
Oh, yeah, but of course, you have 2 parts. One is moving, with respect to the other. When you put it on the surface, you have a propeller that rotates, That is what you need, absolutely,
Was one up there?
So I have a question also concerning using the maybe nano robots for brain brain treatment. Is it possible for the nanorobots to cross the blood-brain barrier?
That is another problem. Of course, we all know this is a general problem of developing pharmaceuticals, drugs, medicine. That how to get through the blood-brain barrier, that is not easy, And we work together with people in pharmacy department to see how we can control that to get through the blood-brain barrier. But then, of course, you have to get also light into the brain. That's the same problem with optogenetics. All this neural science, you will hear about it tomorrow, how to get the light into the brain, I know, I don't want to scare you, but maybe we'll hear about that tomorrow. I saw these movies where they have a rat, in optogenetics. They drill a hole in the skull and then they put a laser to make the rat changing its behavior or so. I don't know. We are at a stage, where we try to get these switchable drugs into crossing the blood-brain barrier. But this is, when I talk with my colleagues from pharmaceutical department or from the industry, they say, this is a general problem, of course, to get things into the brain. This is not so easy. crossing the blood-brain barrier, yes.
Okay, so, but you think it could be possible?
Sorry?
You think it could be possible, maybe?
Yeah, I think it could be possible, yes. Yes, why not? I mean, there are drugs that get into the brain. So why not? Because what we make is not big molecules, it's small molecules, eh? Like a typical, an antibiotic or aspirin. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So one question here.
So you talked about switchable drugs, but how do you make sure...
Oh, there you are, sorry.
But how do you make sure that those switchable drugs reach the exact right cells and activate exactly there?
Now we get to another problem. Of course, you have to target. And what we do is we put molecules that target tumor cells. Yeah? So that you specifically go to tumor cells. But we also use general drugs that go everywhere, but we only then activate there where the tumor is. So there are two approaches. One is to put a tag on it so that it goes to the tumors. The other is that you make a general that can go through the body, but you only, where you irradiate, you activate it. So very precise. Yeah, that is the approach that works best so far. Yes.
So, Ben, thank you very much for your brilliant lecture. I have a question that is kind of coming from today's earlier lectures.
Yes.
Now, in all these systems where we have, interaction between different parts of the machine, systems, how would you get with an on-off light, no light, your systems, nanorobots, 2 or 3 or 5, interact?
Yeah. This is a really tough point. You know, how you have different systems interacting with each other. And this is a general problem in chemistry, what we call systems chemistry, where you go from molecules to a supramolecular system, to maybe a cell-like system or whatever, and then see how different components interact with each other. And we just have submitted a paper, yeah? I cannot disclose all the details, but we work with different cells, yeah? And there where we do, we use the motor to induce an effect in an organelle in an artificial cell. And then we trigger an enzyme, and then it has an effect in a different cell. So we communicate between cells. In part, we do that with Petra Schwiller, at the Max Planck Institute, and with other people here in Germany. I have strong cooperations with several groups in Germany, as you might know. And this is really the way forward, where you get molecular communication, or you get an effect here and it triggers an effect there. And honestly, outside from a perspective of synthetic chemistries, etc., we are just scratching the surface. This is just the beginning. This is absolutely fascinating, how, look at your body, how things are communicating. I mean, when I do this here, I feel it here, yeah? It's amazing, yeah? All these kind of interactions in a complex system. We have to learn that.
So we have 2 more questions, and we have to close the session. I'm sorry for that. There was one here, and then...
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I remember reading a book, a science fiction book, quite some time ago about nanorobots in medicine.
Yeah.
And in that book, they were able to self-replicate and to create more nanorobots inside the body. Do you think that's possible?
Sounds dangerous, eh? I read also this book of Michael Crichton. I think our nanorobots will not self-replicate, We have them perfectly under control. But of course, I'm also in a community, supramolecular community, where we work on self-replication. Also in Germany, several groups are working on these self-replicators and artificial life type systems, etc. When you bring in those aspects, I don't know. But the same holds for this as for any chemistry, molecules, materials, pharmaceutical, drug that we make. You have to do the controls. You have to test. What is the danger? What are potential dangers? If you go to Bayer, and you want to make a new drug, a new pharmaceutical, there are tremendous tests, before you even get to a patient and before you can... I mean, with chemicals in our labs, we have to be very careful, and of course we test them for potential toxicity. And when you go to this kind of machines, yes, you have to do that. Honestly, this book, I remember Michael Crichton, yeah, the New York, no, I think the Daily Telegraph in London wrote about this, you know, because Prince Charles, this is a couple of years ago, maybe I should not tell the story. Now King Charles read about this nanotechnology, these robots, yeah, these nanorobots, and he said, they can replicate. It's so damn dangerous, scientists should immediately stop at nanotechnology. Because they can go in your body, they replicate, they take over your body. Then I was, and this was in the newspapers in England, and Prince Charles said there should be a ban on nanotechnology because he was scared. Then I was in Cambridge at a conference, and my British colleagues, they have a good feeling for humor. And they said, look, you read this article in the newspaper by Prince Charles. We are scientists, yeah? And Prince Charles has his own talents. And maybe we should all keep with our own field and our own talents and knowledge. And they said it a little bit, they said it in a very precise manner, you know. So, better base it on facts, insights, etc. Yes, but of course, we have to train the students about new developments, new discoveries, but also about potential dangers. Ethic aspects, I think at our universities, ethic aspects is very important if we look towards the world in the future. Eh? How to deal with things, you know. What are we going to use in the future? Sustainable, yeah? Safe, all these kind of things. So this is an important aspect. Sorry.
Last question.
Okay, this use light as an energy source. What is with other source of energy like ultrasound or difference in temperature?
Yeah.
Is possible to use them or to combine two or more for more precise medicine?
Now, temperature is not so good. Yeah, when you have a Carnot machine or so, but you know that from school. When you have temperature, you take out the energy, it cools down and it freezes. So, but you need a fuel. Yeah, so you can use electricity, you can use a chemical fuel. We use light, but you see, we also use sugar as a chemical fuel. And we are now building electromotors. We have built an electromotor on the nanoscale, but somebody asked me about stability. Ours died after 48 hours. It was not very stable, so we have to make a better design. But yeah, you can use different kinds of fuels for sure. Yeah, there is no one solution.
I think we should give Ben a big hand again. Fantastic. Also for the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Fantastic. And also many thanks to all the people in the audience who asked questions. We have to empty the room now, unfortunately. I hate to cut the discussion, that is not nice, but you will be here also tomorrow, the whole day.
I will be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
You
go ahead.
Oh yeah. If you have questions to me, please come to me tomorrow. You know, I will be here tomorrow.
Good.